evolution of sound.
What's up, ninjas? This is Ralph Cow back again with another video for you. This time I'll go through my latest release, Assassin's Creed, and I will be explaining how we did it, covering everything from composition to mixing and mastering. So make sure you watch the whole video to get the most out of it as you can. If you haven't heard the track yet, I recommend and appreciate if you did so. Just pause the video really quick, go there, listen to it, so you can get a better idea on how the track actually sounds before watching me go through it. Also, if you have any questions about the track or music production in general, please let me know in the comments below. I'll try to answer to everything as I can. With no further ado, let's do this. For this track, we used two different kick drums just to give it a different touch in different sections of the song. And you might be wondering, oh, but Ralph, isn't it bad to have two different kicks in the same track? Well, normally it is, but here it's essentially the same kick, but the second one just has like a harder attack on top. So this is the first one. Just a basic subby kick. And then there's the second one, also playing a different rhythm. And the secret why this works, having these two different kicks, is because they're pretty much the same kick. This one just has the top attack stronger and more aggressive than the first one, if that makes sense. So this just makes it fun to variate between these two kicks. As you can see here on the drop, we start with the hard attack one, and then we go back to the subby one. It's a very subtle effect because you don't really notice unless you know it, or unless you have your music producer too when you listen to the track carefully, but it just changes the feeling of the drop. In terms of processing the kick drum, it was fairly easy. I was aiming to make it as strong and present in the mix as I could. So to do this, I started by making both kicks completely mono. So what I did was use the A1 stereo control and just put it 100% on mono. So this is just so the kick is really centered, and imagine your track is being played on a club. This makes sure that the kick plays equally as loud in all sound systems in it, which is pretty much an essential thing to do in every song you make. After this, I just added the Supercharger GT, which is a recent. I recently got this. I'm still trying to figure it out. It's a fairly easy to use plugin. What I used was just give it a little bit of character here and make it a little bit louder, just to make it more strong and present in the mix without really distorting it that much. And at the second one, because it was more aggressive, what I did was I did the same thing, but on top of that I added FabFilter Pro C, working as a limiter, because as you can see the threshold is set to 0 dB, just to make sure that this second kick didn't surpass that level. And I also added some EQ just to boost here the bass part of the second kick. So as you can see, it was a fairly easy process of just mixing this kick. I mean both kicks. But yeah, it just works. So yeah, mono, boosted a little bit, loud, and with the supercharger or saturation, and then just EQ it as you need to. In the drop, we have 5 different saws playing, layered together. This was just to make sure that it covered as much of the spectrum as it could, just to make it sound fuller and bigger. So these are the 5 super saws. They sound really powerful exactly because of that, because they are working really well together, well EQ'd, just to make sure one isn't in the way of the other one. And these were actually to be the actual drop, just the super saws, but we decided to add a vocal synth on top, which is this one. So what we did was, just to make sure it didn't conflict the saws with the vocal, what we did was just widen the saws and put the vocal lead in the center. So as you can see here on the saws buzz, we just have a stereo control, making it completely stereo. This just makes the saw super wide so we can have the vocal in the center, and this way it doesn't interfere with it doesn't interfere having both elements playing at the same time. And here on the vocal synth, as you can hear, it was really important that it sounded powerful because it was in the middle. Of course, it's being supported by the super saws, or I should say saws, not super saws. So what we did was just boost the character a little bit with the Supercharger GT. Also make it a little bit louder, but we compressed it afterwards just to make sure that the peaks were controlled, so there weren't like some shots louder than another one. So just making sure that it was more well leveled. Reverb, of course, Fruity Reverb, Fruity Pattermatic EQ. So pretty much what this is doing is just cutting the low frequencies and boosting here at the hot spots for the key of the track, which I think it's in D minor. So we have here boosting at D6, I think, and at D9, just to make sure it gets those two hot spots really right. As you can see here, you can really see that that it's really well boosted there. Writing the melody for the song was pretty easy as well. Leo, who is the guy I made the track with, made this awesome chord progression for the song. You can see it sounds really beautiful. So writing the top melody for it was super easy because I just recreated the Ezio's Family theme song from Assassin's Creed 2, which some of you hopefully can recognize. It's this melody here. So as you can see, it sounds really beautiful, but that's just the magic of the right chord progression and the Ezio's theme song, you know. But yeah, like making a song based out of a video game was really interesting and inspiring. So if you're having some issues with your breakdowns or writing melodies in general, I would totally recommend you to just pick up a theme and work within that theme. It can be a video game, a movie, or even just a vocal, and just write around that because it just gets so much easier to get inspired. Mixing the breakdown, however, was a little bit more challenging. Not too challenging, but still, because as you can see, we have a lot of like stems, like the effects, the drums. So the top to bottom technique I showed you in the revealed style tutorial was really helpful with this, because by just adding one stem or layer and immediately mix it, level it properly to the sounds you already have, just makes it so much easier instead of just making small fixes here and there. So beyond leveling, the most important thing was absolutely just cutting frequencies to make sure that they weren't in each other's way, and also just making sure to spread some elements that you didn't quite need to be centered. So for instance, here on the chords, what I did was I made them a little bit more stereo, as you can see here. And the bass, on the other hand, I put it more mono. So this really helps because you get a fuller sound without having everything stacked up on top of everything, which probably will be ruining your mix because everything will sound distorted and everything is just fighting for space to in the song. So like this, you're just organizing everything, putting, so to speak, everything in its own box, so just they don't fight with each other, so to speak. And that just helps to make it cleaner. It's pretty much like when you clean your room. So you just put everything in the right place, and it's so important, and it's just not that hard. It's just EQ. You just cut it. If you don't need the bass, cut it. If you don't need the highs, cut it. If you need it to be centered, you center it. If you don't need it to be centered, you just make it wide. And this way, it just makes it so much cleaner, as you can see. And that's how we did it. Okay, so here in the mastering section, as you can see, I have a fruity balance, which is pretty much just lowering the volume of the song to -6 dB. This is just so the sound is at -6 dB before getting affected by isotope ozone 5, which is by far my favorite way to master. So here in isotope ozone 5, I always start from the house basic preset. Because it has dynamics and a maximizer, I just select here the frequencies I want to be on the bass, on the mids, the higher mids, and the highs. And here in the stereo imaging, I think it's the most important thing here. Just make sure the bass is completely mono. Here it can be just at 50%, and the highs are a little bit stereo, as you can see, 17%. Just make sure that you are really occupying the full stereo to make it more cleaner and to make it more interesting to listen to as well. While I was mastering with Ozone 5, I had an eye on Span, and this is Span by Voxengo. I think it's for free download. This is by far my favorite visualizing VST. So, as you can see, let me just play the drop.
We are Assassins.
As you can see, there was a little bit missing here, this mid-low section. So I couldn't spot this with my ears only, so it was important to use this. So I knew I had to boost there a little bit, so this is what I did in the low mid. I did a little peak boosting here with the EQ, and it just fixed it and made it sound even more complete. But yeah, as you guys can see, I just keep the mastering really simple and straightforward. I don't do much to it because I don't feel I need to, because I'd rather work on the mix down instead of just hoping to fix the song in the mastering phase. And I recommend you to do the same. I know some other producers will say that mastering is the most important part of music production, but I do not think so. I think the mixing is by far the most important step, and I think if you have a really good mix, and you just do something easy and simple like I do, I think you're on the perfect way to have a solid track. And that's how we made Assassin's Creed and how we mixed and mastered it as well. Hopefully you liked this video and you learned a little bit from it. If you have any questions about the song or music production, again, please let me know in the comments below. I'll try to answer to everything. Also, I'll put this FLP with the stems and the mixing available for free download below, so you can open it and check it for yourself. So you can learn a little bit more about the mixing and the stems that I didn't talk about, so you can just see what we did to it, and you have the stems to remix it if you want to. That being said, guys, I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Cheers.
We are Assassins.